floor, for those of you who are joining us, are simple. The open floor will take place at the end of the meeting. In order to participate, you will type an X when the X's are asked for, and we will resolve the X's in the order that they're given. Please keep in mind, April, please mute your microphone because you're hot micing. Thank you. So the X's will be resolved in the order that we get them. And please keep in mind, everyone, that everyone wants to say something, so don't start going into, Plato's dialogues or something like that. You're making your point. And that's pretty much it. So I guess we'll just go ahead and jump into the announcements. The announcement that we want to make is an adjustment to the bounty system. Bounties will no longer have a grace period. We originally placed in the rules that there would be a period equal to the length of the bounty that would serve as a grace period, during which time that player could not have a bounty placed upon them. But we're going to go ahead and remove that because that kind of just prevents a lot of gameplay. The second announcement that we want to make is that RP needs to take place in local prior to attempting to rob, wound, or kill a player. Please mute your microphone or set a push to talk. Thank you. So, like I said, RP needs to take place prior to robbing, wounding, or killing a player. When we are now going to expect Fishman, mute your microphone. And or set a push to talkie. Thank you. And we're going to set a bare minimum for the role play, right? So we're going to now expect a 10-line minimum from the aggressing player and or bandit in order to, before engaging in an aggressive act with the player that they are trying to exact payment or extortion or whatever that they're trying to get from that player from, right? So that is now a 10-line minimum from the attacker, right? So you're going to need to come up with ways of thinking about what kind of RP you're going to use to fulfill those 10 lines, but we will require 10 lines. Written in local, and preferably you will require a screenshot.
And they have to be complete lines. They can't be like, hey, period, you, period. We want you to put an effort in there.
10 lines for the attacker. So that'll be 10 lines for the attacker. Conversational lines.
So basically lines that make sense, flow well, and whatnot, not
User
just like
your channel.
Like sort of one-worded lines. That's
one-worded line's not gonna cut it. You have to make an effort.
Okay, so we're not going to take any more questions on this, right? We're not going to keep any more questions. We're not going to take any more questions on this, guys.
End. Save your questions for
questions
the end.
Will be placed at the end. For those of you who are wondering, though, if voice is something that happens, then if you are the aggressor, it will be on you to provide the video evidence of those 10 lines in voice. Right? So like an actual recording, and you'll have to confirm that the other player can hear you in voice, right, before you attack them. So you can't just go up to them, say 10 lines, and if they're looking at you like they can't hear you, it's probably because they cannot hear you. So do confirm that they hear you, and that's why we do think that it'd be easier to fulfill the 10-line minimum in local than the 10-line vocal minimum. All right, so that all said, we're going to move on to the next thing that we want to talk about, which is RP standards. So you might be wondering, what is the reason why we're making it so that there's a minimum of 10 lines before a bandit can rob, wound, or kill a player? And the reason for this is that we have established 3 separate methods of someone without the RP requirement on the server. right? So the ways to kill someone without an RP requirement are 1, the bounty system, 2, your claim hostile or an enemy to another claim, which we'll go in detail when our server admin Cat talks about that. And then the final one, which is a declaration of war. Right? So you have these 3 options in order to engage in combat out RP. And we think that those are plenty for the people who want to engage in PvP that aren't hampered by the RP requirements. Inversely, this means that the people who are bandits who aren't declaring war will have to work just a little bit harder in order to be bandits on the server with the 10-line minimum. So I made this paint document in order to illustrate what we were hoping for with RP standards when it comes to banditry. And I put that in the server meeting box for those of you who can access that. But basically, as you can see, there's a rectangle, right? Rectangle represents the rule set. The 10-line bare minimum is what you need to do before you begin to rob, kill, maim, or wound someone within the rule set. If you don't reach that, that will now be considered against the rules. Okay? That would be correct. Please hold off until the end. I think there's a little bit of time after I'm done here. Right. So the oval, on the other hand, represents what we'd like to strive for in terms of the RP standards on the server. So just like when you are sitting in a class, right, like math or history or something, you could get a bunch of D pluses or C minuses and pass the class. That is representative of our 10-line, right? So that is you passing. That's not you being exceedingly well at RP. That's just the bare minimum that you need to scrape by against the rule set, right? Like bumping up against the fence or the divider in the highway. That is what the 10-line minimum is. Okay, that is the new threshold for RP. The oval, on the other hand, represents what we'd like to see out of bandits, right? These are guidelines. These aren't things that we require you to do, but something that we think would make it so that you won't run into the issue of someone running away from you because you want to rob them. And the reason for that is because if you are an interesting bandit, if you have flavor to your banditry, if there's a pattern to how you go about robbing people, if you're flexible in your demands, and if you don't just grind away at a single guild in one day, and people will consider you good RPers as opposed to that's the bandit who just wants to kill me, I should hide inside of my warehouse. Now, that's not to say that there aren't going to be people who are just going to run away. And of course, we do have the rule in place that they must respond to your roleplay, right? And if they're going to choose to ignore a backstory that you're developing, or that you have built a toll road, or that you've gone through a lot of trouble in order to be a bandit with a storyline who has reason for robbing people, who has motives and dreams and hopes, then they would be guilty of bad RP, right? So this is going to work in both ways. Your channel. But we hope that people could follow these guidelines. And by no means is this an extensive list.
User joined your channel.
But might lead to banditry on the server and something that's more palatable to the people who are otherwise frustrated at the 3-line RP or something like that. So just to read again, there is now a 10-line bare minimum for before engaging in combat with a person to rob, wound, or kill them. That is the minimum, but that is a minimum, right? And our minimums are not our maximums. We would like our bandits to strive to be a little bit more interesting, right? So write your lore on the forums, write your story, write why you are a bandit. Most people just don't become bandits for the sake of being bandits. Most people have some sort of backstory. But we think that if people have stories and they're engaging, the peasants that you're going to terrorize are going to be more interested in actually being terrorized, and they won't just roll their eyes and go, oh, this guy just wants to knock me out and take my stuff. Instead of actually a really interesting bandit. And with patterns and things like that, you'll also allow people a chance to retaliate if they want to, which leads to healthier conflict and one where people don't feel utterly frustrated. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and done that, let me check. Oh, yeah. So we'll just take the questions at the end there. Yeah, just to be fair. So sorry, Chase. We're going to go ahead and leave that towards the end. So don't lose your thought. Right. So the next thing that we wanted to discuss, and as has come up as an issue in discussing things with players, is the idea of GM corruption. We've had accusations that GMs are DATs for certain groups, that they've demonstrated favoritism in groups, that rules are being bent and not enforced for one group of players against another group of players, etc., etc. The bottom line of that is that is not true. All players equally on the server. And if anything has come up regarding the whole whether or not bandits RP enough or don't RP enough, we hope that was effectively addressed with the new minimum 10 line rule. Yeah, so that's essentially what I wanted to say about that. Do any of the other GMs, would you like to chime in on GM corruption?
No, I made a post on it, so I'm good.
Just that if anyone has any issues, just feel free to talk to us. We'll never ban anyone for coming to an issue or bringing an issue to a GM. We'll never do that. So we welcome you guys to talk to us and open dialogue between us.
It's also worth noting, if you have evidence of GM corruption, we definitely want to see it. Instead of just passing it around between each other, make sure we see it so we can do something about it. Because if we don't know it's happening, we can't change that.
I do want to encourage everyone who hasn't read Ellison's thread to do so, and I'll link it in the chat right now.
User disconnected from your channel.
Yeah, we can't do anything regarding accusations and evidence if we don't have evidence. So GM corruption can't be fixed if we don't know where the corruption is situated.
Yes. So if you believe corruption is taking place, take evidence and then bring it to our attention. Complaints forum, and we review all evidence of GM corruption very thoroughly and very carefully. Because the last thing that we want is for the GM staff to be seen as a corrupt staff that caters to either ourselves or to specific players, because that is not true. We want everyone to enjoy playing on the server, and that's the atmosphere that we do want to cultivate. So feel free to bring things to us, and we are not afraid of handling situations revolving GM corruption, especially if they have merit. Okay, so moving on to the next bit, we're going to talk about very briefly the state of the server economy. So some of you might be wondering how much gold is actually in circulation on the server. And you might also be wondering, well, why are the prices for Vox's Vanity, which is for claim protection, 100 gold a day? Or why are the costs for Tyrant's Tears 250 gold a day? Those seem to be pretty high prices. But when you look at it from the total amount of gold that's actually in circulation, we see that those numbers pale in comparison to the volume of coins that we have handed out.
User joined your
some of
channel.
you might notice that when we're giving out gold to new players, we don't give it out immediately after opening the trade. We open the trade and then it takes like 2 or 3 minutes sometimes in order before we drag the 25 coins into the trade box and then hit accept. And the reason for that is because we're recording the player's name in our ledger, which does two things. One, it prevents people from asking gold the second time around, and the second thing is that it allows us to keep an eye on how much gold we've injected into the economy. So the total amount of gold that's in the economy right now is a little bit less than 6,000 gold coins. Whether or not that surprises some of you might be, that depends on how wealthy you are. But yeah, so there are 6,000 gold coins in circulation right now. And we are keeping an eye on things like gold sinks through the GM items, as well as how much gold we're inserting into the economy through things like tournaments, stuff like that. Right. So Tarek, please hold on to that thought when we get to the end. Thank you. So the next thing on the agenda is the concept of rule play. Rule play is basically using as a first resort rules, typically in gray areas, in order to influence an in-game situation, right? So more often than not, in a lot of situations, the GM gets summoned over and is given, there are people who are complaining about a certain situation, and thus we end up with role play. We also, in some circumstances, see players who will write complaints on the forums that have to do with very specific rules, or very specific interpretations of rules that are not interpretations that we have promulgated. And this tends to happen in times of the day when a GM is not online, for instance, and people are discussing things in global, and you get words like, on another server that I played on that was also a roleplay server, this was the rule, so therefore it must also be the rule here. That is not correct. We do have our own rule set, and it has been inspired by other roleplay servers in some instances, but it is our own rule set. So do keep that in mind. But the other thing that tends to happen when people raise a rule play issue in a situation where rules are either very clear,
User
or
disconnected
the
from
rules
your
are
channel.
just slightly in the gray area, is that it shuts down RP, right? So instead of being a roleplay server, you end up with a rule play server, where people instead become rule lawyers, and they aim to remove opposition to themselves by making complaints against people about rule violations, right? That's not something that we really want to encourage. Obviously, if there is a rule violation, then take evidence, of course, and take screenshots, record video, and then report it to the GM team, and we will review it. But try not to raise frivolous complaints, right? Or complaints that are clearly that are designed to punish one group of players, and then you go and you violate the same rule later on. Now, I'm not accusing anyone in this room of doing that, but it is something that has occurred on the server in previous iterations, and something that we don't really want to happen now, because it leads to people saying, well, the rules are enforced for them, but they're not being enforced for these people over here, and it gets to be confusing. We want to enforce the rules for everyone. So, you know, if you report someone for breaking something, don't go and violate it when our backs are turned. And yes.
In addition to talking about the rules, is when you report a violation of the rules, if you don't see immediate action, it's because the GMs are talking amongst ourselves. We're talking about it, we're reviewing the evidence, and we've got to do an investigation for every single complaint, so we can't just give a verdict straight away. So we have to talk about it, we have to look around. Otherwise, if we just acted immediately, then we wouldn't be a fair team.
One of the things we have to do when we get a complaint, regardless of the level of complaint, is to get the other side. And I know in some cases it seems like that's ridiculous. You know, you have a screenshot, you've got plain evidence. But the best example I can give is the one I gave in my post, which was a fight that broke out between two groups. Each group accused the other one of attacking without RP. Both groups had video. Both groups could not hear the other group. If we had just gone with one of the videos, we could have ended up with a much worse situation. We really do have to investigate everything from both sides, and that's how you know that we are being a fair GM team. We're not just going with the first thing we see. So please do be patient with the time it takes.
All right. Does anyone else, Alisson, Hadaro, would you like to say anything to that?
No, I think we're good. About time to open it up to players, yeah?
Well, we're going to do the claim relations. The surprise that Kat is preparing for us. And yes, so we're going to go ahead and give the floor over to our own server admin, and then we will go into the open floor session.
Alrighty, well, I will give you guys the surprise later at the end of what I'm saying here. Let me pull up my notes.
Okay, I can tell what you're supposed to talk about it is because I just saw the document just get like a bunch of tildes.
Yeah, sorry about that. That would be my push to talk. Okay, so to start off with, we have 3 tiers of titles. We have titles of nobility, titles of prestige, titles of office. And those are the requestable titles, I guess is the way to put it. The titles of prestige refer to Dame, Knight, Royal Knight, and things along those lines. Titles of office refer to an actual office that someone may hold, like Sergeant, Officer, Commander, Master, Mistress, Crusader. The titles of nobility refer to the actual claim size, and that is Baron or Baroness, Viscount or Viscountess, Count or Countess, King, Queen. Now, it's important to note that you are not limited to those titles. I know a lot of times those titles get in the way of people's roleplay, and we can actually do any variation on those, but it's important to know that those levels exist. I'll go into more detail on those in a minute. In addition to those, however, we do have other titles that are available, and I'm going to read these off. These are the ones that are by default built in the game. Now, the difference between it being by default and being a custom title is that if it is default built into the game, it does not matter if a player has Basil as to whether or not they will see your title. If it is not default, then they will not be able to see it unless they actually have Basil. But to keep in mind, these are all default titles I'm about to read. Recruit, Member, peasant, believer, farmer, old man, craftsman, slave driver, chemist, druid, runner, craftsman. That can give you an idea of the directions you could go with those titles. And then as far as custom titles, what we have so far, princess, prince, knight captain, and dark father. You are literally not limited on the custom titles. We can make any title that somebody wants. However, titles that imply prestige, office, or nobility have to be applied for.
User joined your channel.
Part of what ties into this title system is what is called a vassal system or a peerage system. Under that, you have the various levels of city, barony, viscounty, county, duchy, and then kingdom level that can pledge allegiance to each other or do a pledge of fealty. When you have pledged fealty to a group that is larger than your own, it is assumed, and it's very important to note that word, assumed, not required, that you will follow a number of guidelines. The reason why I say assumed is important is because anything in this entire system is pure RP, and it will only be dealt with in RP. Let me give you an example. Let us say one count is angry at another count and does a raid on his castle. The count then turns around to the Lord and says, hey, they raided me. That is the way it should work. Not the counts go to the GM and say, hey, this guy isn't supposed to be raiding me, we're under the same kingdom. The reason why we're putting higher powers in place here is so that you can have recourse like that. There is a roleplay way to deal with issues like that. The general standards that are assumed for a vassal are as follows, and if you have any other suggestions, I'm certainly open to them. The lower status claim will obey the laws of the higher. We have a new location in the forums under White Salt that is a place for laws and rules of areas to be placed. Once again, it is entirely up to the players to police those laws. They are not enforced by GMs.
From your channel.
They are enforced by the players. So if you're a baron and you're going to tax 5 gold to everyone that walks into your claim, you are expected to get the 5 gold, and if they don't pay it, you have to deal with it. It's supposed to all be in RP, not at all coming to the GMs. Second, a lower status claim has the right to change their lord at their discretion. It's kind of common sense. If you pledge fealty to one person, you're not stuck with them. If you don't like them, then pledge to someone else or break off the fealty altogether. That's just kind of a common sense one. Number 3, lower status claims may be sponsored by higher status claims to bypass any rule with regard to nobility, prestige, or office. Now, part of the system allows for a noble to host their own events. Now, the requirement on that is that they provide, the location, the security, the food, all of the things that go into the event themselves. GMs will not assist in that. So if someone wants to host, for example, a jousting tournament, they have every right to say only people with a baron title or higher may joust. The exception to that, which is what this rule states, is that a higher level or a person of that nobility level or higher may in fact sponsor someone from under them to go in their place. If you can keep all your questions till the end. Sorry about that. Next. Sorry. The next item. Yeah, lower status claim may request a title from higher status claim. And of course, the higher status has the right to refuse. If you are a Baron and you are pledged to a Count and you feel like you deserve to be a Viscount, discuss that with your Count and they can make you a Viscount. Higher status claim may give a lower status title to any individual claim that is part of their fealty tree. Now, the fealty tree refers to that system of claims that is made up by the noble system, that being barony, county, viscounty, county, duchy, kingdom, and below barony, of course, the individual cities and claims. So anything on a higher level can give status and thus a title to a lower level. Number 8, I've been saying this for a while. Higher status claims are expected to police and enforce any of these expectations. The GMs will not interfere in the vassal system as GMs. The characters, that's a different story, but the actual GMs will not come in and say, I'm a GM, this is how things run. Number 9, higher status claims are expected to raven/inform their lower status claims of relational changes that they end up posting. So if you have a fealty tree and you have, say, 2 or 3 barons under you, and you are becoming hostile to another claim, you really should be informing the people under you, hey, we're hostile to them, you might want to do the same. Let's see. Higher claims have titles and gain knighthoods that they can give out to anyone below them in their fealty tree. Simply put, there are a certain number based on the level that you are in the vassalage system. Certain number of titles that you are allowed to give out, both within your claim and then again in your fealty tree. And I'll go into the actual details of that in a minute. A higher status claim may sponsor, I just said that, I'm sorry. A individual with a recognized title of nobility may revoke any title that they have issued. Now, it's important there to note that it is that they have issued. If you have individually petitioned the GMs for your claim to be recognized as a duchy, it doesn't matter how good the monarch thinks they are, they cannot take away that duchy status. However, if they granted you a duchy and you didn't go through the GMs for permission, you went through the monarch, then they can. As far as the relations go, only the guild leader has the right to set the status of a guild towards another guild. It's kind of common sense. Your leader makes the statement. It's like having your politician say, yes, we're at war, or no, we're not. Anybody that's not a leader shouldn't be making that kind of statement. In the situation of alliances, trade agreements, and pledges of fealty, both guild leaders need to post to ratify the agreement. So in other words, you can't just go on there and say, hey, this claim is allied with
User
me
joined your channel.
and have it be. Both claims have to approve it before it will actually be recognized as a valid relation. Now, hostile and enemy do not have to be recognized, and in fact do not have to be matched. And when I say matched, what I mean is that if one guild sets another guild to hostile, they have the benefits of being hostile with them. But until the second guild sets the first one as hostile, they do not have those benefits. So it is very important to make sure you keep up with your relations with other guilds. Let's see. The form for that is called Claim Relations. It's under the Peerage and Nobility category. Now, as far as those status goes, there are guidelines for those statuses and only a few hard rules when it comes to actual relations. Peaceful. Generally, RP required before a kill or an attack. You will usually need to request entrance to a city or claim. Friendly. Heavy RP with justification before a kill or
User
attack.
disconnected from your channel.
Gates are generally opened when recognized, may make social calls, that kind of thing. You know, it's the people that come up to your claim and you look and go, oh, hey, I know that person, and open. Allied, is a greater version of friendly. Gates are generally open and recognized, will come to your defense, vice versa. Now note, these are expectations, not requirements. Hostile and enemy work a little bit differently. In hostile, a defender, or in other words, a person on their home claim, is allowed to KOS, to kill on sight, a claim that they are set hostile to. So in the two claims of Claim A and Claim B, Claim A sets Claim B to hostile. Claim B walks on their claim. Claim A is allowed to attack. They may fire warning shots, but that is up to them. Finally, enemy. Defender KOS is still allowed, and outside KOS outside of claims is allowed. However, it should be noted that there can be RP responses and results of KOSing in someone else's claim. Trade agreement is pretty straightforward. You're trading with another claim. And finally, the Pledge of Fealty. It is an agreement to follow the laws established by the higher authority, to abide by the relation agreements set by the higher authorities, and that allows you to request sponsorship at tournaments to bypass nobility from higher authorities as well as titles. I know that was a whole lot to swallow, and I'm really sorry about that. It was a lot to go through. Now, once we go into the question portion, I will take any questions, concerns, that kind of thing, and we can discuss those. As far as the surprise goes, we have been working on getting new content for the server, and I'm pleased to announce that in the next week or two, we will be launching churches. Architecture will be getting churches to build. So your religions can have an actual location with which to meet. The churches are already working on the test server. We just have to finish a few little details. So we do expect that to come out within the next week or two. And that is all I have. Rembrandt, if you have anything else.
No, I don't have anything. So thank you for that overview of our claim system. And everyone is excited for the churches that are going to be coming soon. So before we go into the questions and answer portion, we could take 5 minutes and then reconvene, and we'll take questions and answers based on the subjects that in the order of the subjects. GM corruption that you want to say, then we'll go ahead and do that then. And because it'll be based on subjects, you'll know when to type your X, not just jump the gun. So we'll reconvene at 9:25, and that's by PST. That'd be 12:35 Eastern Standard Time. All right. Okay. We'll see you back.
25, right?
Yes, 25.
User disconnected from your channel. 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 User left 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 your channel.
Are we gonna lose everyone?
Don't worry. You're not going to see.
Your channel was edited.
Ish.
User left your channel. Your channel was edited.
You started
User
the
in
whole
your
commercial
channel
before
timed
as well.
out.
Oh, who timed out?
All the people.
Everybody's just like, oh, look, the meeting's over. We'll leave. No.
No, they hadn't had a
No.
chance to complain yet. What are you talking about?
Wow. Complain.
Don't you worry, we've got a list
I
for you
know.
guys.
You got your list, I know.
Oh, I'm ready.
This is Catherine. I'm usually on pretty late at night as well. I may not have my tags on, but if there's a Zilbervoss on, chances are it's me. Go ahead.
Okay. Alright, so I know a lot of you are holding your fingers over the X before I say this. So how it's going to work for the 10-line discussion. I'm going to put a bunch of equal signs in the chat. So put your X's in after the equal signs, okay? Alright.
Want to see how that goes pretty long. Oh my god. People were on that trigger. Holy.
Oh man. Alright.
Okay, so
That
we'll
was
go
like
ahead and start
rapid.
with... Alright, so guys... Alright. So for the purposes of this, please try to refrain from putting comments into the chat section, like trying to respond to someone, for instance. We will probably just allow people to... No, we're not going to allow responses, because like I said, this isn't a debate. Okay? So, don't put comments in the channel, because otherwise we're going to lose track of who placed their X's when. Okay? So, does anyone else want to say something about the 10-line rule? Go ahead and put your X. If not, then we'll go ahead and start with...
Do you want us to, like, put them down again?
No. For anyone who had not already placed an X, to just put them down now so we can keep track of who's going to speak. No? Okay, fantastic. So we'll go ahead and start with Rizul.
Hi,
Do
everybody.
keep your comments as limited as be precise with your wording.
Everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Razul. So, first of all, I have a couple little comments. It'll be quick. I'll keep it brief. First topic is the 10-line thing. I feel as though there are enough rules in place to protect people who wish to PvE or not PvP as much already. That being, if you have built walls, nobody can come inside your base. Unless there's a war declaration, you're totally safe in your own base. I just feel it's kind of silly that now we need to almost write a novel to get into a PvP interaction with people, considering half the people don't type back or just ignore you anyway. And now they'll just lag it out, so it takes, 5 minutes to enact in a PvP situation. And in medieval times, if you do recall correctly, if you did leave your homestead, you were in danger. There were bandits about. You know what I mean? And there are people who are following the rules just fine. And I know a lot of people who don't wish to record or take a bunch of screenshots of every little thing. Not to mention putting more stress on an already stressed GM team about counting, oh, did they have 8 lines of PvP or did they have 10? You know what I mean? That's one thing. I already feel like the rules are in place that's helping that. Yeah, and then the second thing, I don't know. Just a lot of the, I think people need to, I think you guys should bring it up. People should start taking things a little more OOC-ly and start separating RP from OOC. Because really not an asshole, even though I roleplay as one. And everybody just calls me a dick all the time in Global. And it's not very cool, because as soon as I say anything to anybody, I get jumped all over. But people can just run free reign on me and call me an asshole or a dick all day long.
No, you should be reporting that. If we don't see it, we can't yell at them.
Global, so it was literally right before the meeting. Guys were calling me a dick all the time, and nobody says anything.
I didn't see it. I mean, I don't constantly read Global, so you should actually make a report on that, because that's not cool.
It was me. I'll fess up to it.
We expect people to act like grown-ups.
People need to be able to separate RP and OOC.
I agree completely. And we're not trying to shut down PvP. You understand? Like, we have 3 other methods that you don't need any PvP to fight.
I know, but why do we need to add more rules about PvP? Like, are we trying to turn this into RP Cliff, where you can't even PvP?
You can PvP all day long. I mean, declare a war or
not
declare
unless
a hostile.
I post 25 gold. or declare a war
roleplay
on them.
server first.
I mean, how hard is it to declare hostile with another guild? This
Yeah.
is mostly to
Doesn't
protect
cost-
those people that are just new on the server. They don't have walls up yet, and these are the only people that the bandits can get to because everyone else is hiding. And we want to protect the new players and give them a chance.
So if I tomorrow just went on the forums and I'm like, I declare war on the entire server.
Really?
I'm just saying, that's, you guys got to look at the ways around these rules that you're making up, you know? I mean, there are ways around it, and people could just do stupid things like that. I'm not saying I would, because that'd be ridiculous. But, you know, like...
something else, if you give me a second, something else to keep in mind. Even though you and Gunnar are the primary source of the banditry as far as the day-to-day stuff, the real problem isn't you guys. It's the people that just come in, kill people, and leave. The people that are trying to make a problem. A lot of times,
who it is.
You guys do a good job of your role play. We're making it so that you can more easily distinguish between you guys and the good role play you do, and the just people that are here to cause trouble.
Yeah, well, I know what you guys are talking about. I know the individuals you're talking about. So if you really have an individual or a problem with the guys, why don't you just ban them both and then be done with it? Why are you guys adding new rules that affect the whole community? Like, if there are bad seeds, just deal with them. Don't change all the rules around, so now we got to jump through hoops and, you know, write a short novel to enact NERP. Like, I already record everything, so it's not a big deal for me, but a lot of my guild members don't. And they don't want to have to take screenshots or get a recording program or any of that stuff. So as soon as they want a PvP, now they have to go and download a program. They got to take screenshots and post all this stuff. It's, you know, it's not very fluid with what happens in the moment. There's already rules in place. I can't jump a wall to kill them. If you're out at night or you're out doing stuff, you should be worried about getting killed. There's bandits around. That's the way it goes. I'm not even talking about me in general, because I don't go around robbing people anymore. I don't care.
Yeah, but we're trying to prevent the people that just come up on people and say, hey, give me your stuff. Okay, I'm going to kill you. And they think that is sufficient roleplay.
That's fail RP, and they should be banned then.
So, I mean, people need to have, some people need to have like a literal number of how much interaction.
Microphone muted.
And so that's the number we give to it.
There's already rules in place for that, though. That's what I'm saying. But I'm not going to sit here and argue with you guys. A lot of people you guys got to get to, so yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for your thoughts. The next person wanted to speak is Cassius.
Seriously. Please.
Yeah, seriously. This is already running really late.
Go ahead, question and comments.
Yes.
So your question, I'm assuming, is if you have a multiple group of people, do each individual need to do those 10 lines of roleplay, or if the group as a whole has done 10 lines of roleplay, does that then facilitate that then you can then initiate hostilities?
Would it not be per party?
So, other GMs, what do you think about that?
The basis of the rule is to encourage interaction with players, right? So if there is a mob of 5 people, and they ride up to a place, and each of them contribute to a conversation with a peasant, right? And like these right? They're going to need to be legitimate questions, and the peasant will have should be afforded time to respond to them, right? First and foremost. Secondly, don't think that you could have 10 people who all write, "You're going to die now," and then kill the person, right? We're not going to consider that sufficient RP. We expect the lines to be progressive in the sense that it's being emergent for a storyline, right? But you need to. There needs to be back and forth with the person. You need to be able to respond. That's the bottom line, and they need to be able to respond to all of the lines. Okay. Once that's happened, then that opens up the possibility for PvP.
I don't think he answered the exact question, but yes, the mob itself needs 10 lines. However, each line needs to be able to be responded to. So you can't just all shout at once and attack someone. They have to be afforded time to answer each line.
Right, I understand that for those people who are with a PvP-orientated mindset, that seems like a block because you're trying to... You want a PvP and you're role-playing as well, but at the end of the day, people still need time to type. So you can't act on anything because you've got to think in the sense of the world. You're not waiting for the person to type and talk. The person then responds to you, but the time scale is slightly skewed because, you know, 1 minute could go by as they're typing their response, but that minute doesn't actually happen because that person's already responded to you.
And like we said, just to reiterate, there are other ways to engage in KOS that are perfectly open, right?